Shalom and welcome to the Remedy Alef Tav show. And I'm Nitsa, for those of you who don't know. And this series that we're doing is basically called the Alef Tav Remedy because we're focusing on the Alef Tav body system and anything that's related to that. And of course, as far as I'm concerned, everything's related to the Alef Tav because it's right there in Genesis 1:1 when Elohim Alef Tav created the heavens and the earth, which I'll go into a deep study in that. So today I have this wonderful guest, and her name is Pamela Bonilla, and she is a practitioner. She's a Christian counselor, and she's also an ATB practitioner and has an integrated health center. And she does counseling, coaching, and integrated wellness for trauma, autism, attachment disorders to help children become emotionally resilient. Her team, she has a team there that has offers comprehensive support to the individual and to the whole family to help members thrive and enjoy a fulfilling life. And today we're going to learn more about the Alef Tav body system and how she incorporates this biblical healing modality into her counseling and her health practice. And this is especially so with the information and research that she's doing with autism and attachment disorders, etc. And so I'm going to welcome Ms. Pamela here. Hello.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm glad to see you again and actually connect more.
Yeah.
I think we have over 200 trained practitioners now. And of course, we have, hundreds or thousands. We've sold, I think close to 4,000 ATB books. So it's, it's starting to grow, and people always have questions, and there's so much to learn. And, even if you've been to class, you're always learning, right?
Oh, yeah, constantly. You go through class and you learn so much, and it's like just a week of like getting all this information in, and then you're like, okay, now I have to go home and like do this. Like, what does this look like?
I know some people, I tell people all the time, the ATB book, they're like, it's really, it's based on scripture, right? It's based on the Bible. It's like, do you think you're going to embrace your Bible all at once overnight? No, you're going to spend the rest of your life doing that. And so, the ATB Alef Tav body system in the book, because it is based on scripture, it's going to be your reference book, and you're always going to be learning in whatever your specialty or whatever you're drawn to, like for what you're doing. Really want to get into how you're using that, and there's just a lot of exciting stuff that we're going to learn, and we learn along the way and we share. So would you like to share a little bit about your background and how you came interested into healing?
Yeah, so I have been working with children since like 1987. This is something that I'm very drawn to, and kids they can sense, innately that I'm somebody that could be trusted. And so my husband and I had been living in the Philippines for 8 years for my husband's job. And when we knew we were coming back to the States, I was like, what am I going to do? I wanted to get a job. I wanted to start working. And the Lord had reminded me, like when I was a child back in the 70s at our church, there was I would volunteer in the nursery, and there was a little boy, and he would sit in the cubbies and he would flap his hands and he wouldn't speak. And the women didn't really do anything with him. And I was just like, I want to help this child. I want to work with children like this. But of course, back in the 70s, we didn't have the word autism.
Right.
And so when I was coming back to the States from the Philippines, the Lord reminded me of that memory. And I was like, that's right. I want to work with kids with autism. And so I started my journey of getting my degree. And at first I thought it was going to be special education. And then I found out there was something called a BCBA for behavioral analysis. And so I started doing that. And when I was taking that, some of my own trauma was surfacing. And I found out, and also I became a registered behavior technician working with kids with autism. And I also realized that I didn't believe in a lot of the stuff that they did. Like, for instance, I believe that the parent is the expert on the child and that the parent should be looped into the treatment with the child. And I also didn't believe in extinguishing of behaviors because I felt it was more inhumane. And I felt like kids could be treated with more dignity than
Mhm.
they were getting. Um, and I also thought, like, it's not all about behaviors. There's got to be a root cause.
Right.
And so when I started doing my own trauma work, I started with doing like EMDR, and I was like, oh my gosh, I could do this with kids with autism. And so I switched to do counseling for my master's.
Okay.
And so when I graduated with a master's of science in professional counseling with an emphasis in child and adolescent disorders, and I was looking for an internship, there was no counseling practice out there that was working with kids with autism.
Oh, wow.
And so it was really like the first in my field here in Arizona to be really working. There was another lady that did some EMDR, and then I found a lady who did EMDR for autism. I took that training, and so it just kind of went from there as far as that's concerned. And so that's how I ended up um, working in this field with started with kids with autism. At the same time, I was really interested in attachment work.
Mhm.
Um, and so I ended up in a practice that she was one of the top attachment therapists in Arizona. So I had a lot of great training and background in that. And so that's kind of where the Lord brought me to.
So, for those who may not know, because there was a time when I didn't know. I mean, I might have known what it was, but didn't have the words for it, right? So, what is attachment? What is an attachment disorder?
Yeah, so when we're talking attachment disorders, this is what happens when a child loses their birth mother in whatever way that would look like. Maybe it's through adoption or foster care, kinship care, something along those lines. And so that primary wound of the loss of the birth mom affects the child in a way that everything kind of gets filtered through a shame filter.
Mm-hmm.
And so raising children with attachment injuries looks a lot different than raising a child who is your biological child. So there's a whole different way of parenting.
And
And
so, what would
so I
you
work
say
with
to
that.
a person who says, "But I've had the child since the day he was born"?
Yeah, the number one uh, difference is
Mm-hmm.
this child, when it was in utero, it was being attached to that birth mother through the nervous system and through the heartbeats. That heartbeat, we all have our own personalized heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
It's more personalized than even our fingerprints. And so that baby was raised in an environment, grew up in an environment where it is attaching to this one particular heartbeat, the sound of the mother's voice, the nervous system connection of the mother, and then they lose all of that. Even at day one, they're
Right.
still going to have that deep connection to the birth mother. And then as an infant and a child, everything gets filtered through the thought that they're so egocentric. I must have done something. I must be a really bad person in
Right.
order for my own birth mother to not love me.
Right. Yeah, because it always kind of got me. It's like, why couldn't we look at how the positive side of it? Like, look what Father, our Heavenly Father did to provide for you, for that love
Yeah.
and that care. And I know but it's so ingrained in them. I think, and then we won't even, not even getting into the trauma of the
Yeah.
feelings and the emotions, the anger, the frustration from the mother and the father that the child is feeling in utero, right before they're even born. And I mean,
Yeah.
we don't have to be adopted or detached to even have to deal with that, right? So it's very fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you got, what year was that you said there was really nobody working with autistic children?
2017, I think, or 18 is when I
Oh, wow.
graduated.
Okay.
So, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right
So,
after that, like centers started coming up. So, yeah.
mm,
But right now, like the majority of my practice is working with kids with autism.
yeah. Well, I think for a long time too, we just sent them over and medicated them, right?
Yeah. Or we thought like the ABA, doing
Yeah.
that with them.
Behavioral.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Okay, and so that led you to, or a lot of different things along the way came and brought you to the Alef Tav body system with Dr. Monzo?
Yeah, so when I started my own practice, I was standing in my office and the Lord said, I want you to look at the person as a whole. I want you to treat their spirit, soul, and body. Like, so I was expecting that the Lord would like bring along the body work right away, but he actually didn't. He brought like the spiritual coaching. And so I went into the spiritual coaching for my clients' spiritual needs for that. I work with clients who have satanic ritual abuse in that area. And then at the beginning of last year is I had been looking into body work and like what is it the Lord wanted me to do, and I hadn't felt like a peace about anything that I had found. And so the beginning of last year, the Lord, I was taking a bath, and the Lord likes to speak to me when I'm taking a bath because that's a time when I'm actually like not being able
The
to go
spirit
anywhere.
lives in water
So
from
yeah.
creation. Yeah.
And so he said, I want you to start the body work this year. And I opened up my Instagram, and there was a girl on video saying there is a spirit-filled messianic believer up here who's a doctor who has created this touch work or body work around the ancient Hebrew letters. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. Like, this was like such an
Right.
interesting concept to me. And then I looked into it and I was like, yeah, I think this is definitely where I'm going to go with that. And then I fell asleep and completely forgot about it for a few weeks. And the Lord brought it back and he's like, I want you to do that. And I was like, oh my gosh, where was this again? I can't even remember Dr. Manzo's name, which is like so strange because he has such an unusual name. Like but I
Alfonso
couldn't.
Monzo,
I
the
know,
third.
right?
Yeah.
And so I went back to Instagram to see if I could find this lady in this video, and that was the very first video that came up on Instagram. And I was like, how could this be? Like, this is
Yeah.
like, this never happens. And so I found him again and I signed up. And I remember getting the book, the big, thick book,
Yeah. Right.
and
Right.
reading through it and
Yeah. Yeah.
thinking,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh-huh, yes, uh-huh. And reading and starting to do my reading through it. I watched the videos and stuff, and I was like, Lord, I don't understand why you want me to do this because I work with like the mind, with helping people in counseling with they're having a hard time with that. This is like talking about like diabetes and kidney disease and heart disease. Like I don't know any of this. Like I don't know anything in the body like that. And then I turned the page and it said something about like ADHD. This helps with ADHD and autism or something like that. And I'm like, oh, I'm getting it now. And so as I was reading more into each one of the points,
Right.
especially the first cycle points,
Mhm.
it started making more sense to me. Like, okay, yeah, so this helps with things like suicide ideation and bipolar and even SRA stuff. And so I was like, okay, I understand now why you want me to take this. And so that's how I ended up getting into the Alef Top body.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So I'd like to expand just a little bit here because one of my missions with the Alef Tav series, besides helping people learn how to use it and or with their practice or for themselves and their family, is we've gone under huge attacks from the believer community. And so because they just don't understand, which hey, I think we've all been there. There was a time I would have said no way, but especially when you get into Hebrew, you get into ancient Hebrew, you get into the form, function, and real definitions. You go, oh, we just have such a Western mindset, right?
Right.
But I guess my question to you, back to what you said, is none of those other things really resonated with you as to wanting to get into them. And so you have to ask yourself why. It's because I think a lot of people know there's a spiritual application, emotional application, but every time we go to look for something, it's mixed with
Right.
new
Yeah.
age and witchcraft and stuff like that. So I guess my question is, could you explain what it was that you felt that this was different and it wasn't that?
Yeah. I wanted to be very, very intentional at every training that I take,
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that this is what the Lord wants me to like learn.
Mm-hmm.
One of my friends who's a Christian here, Christian counselor, she did take a training for some somatic work, and she went and took the training over the weekend. And then she said that they got all the way through the whole entire training. At the very end, they said, "Okay, now we're gonna stand up and raise our hands and praise Ra." The God, Son, Ra. And she's like, "Oh no, I'm not," you know?
Right, right, right.
And so she's like, "I was just praising Jesus," but she didn't even realize like that whole entire thing was based on that. And so it's just one of those to go, like you have to really walk in discernment whenever you're doing any type of a training. And so what I've known for myself is whenever I feel like, oh, like I want to take this training, and I look into it and I just don't feel like I can do it. Like there's a hesitation there. The
Right,
hesitation is really the Holy Spirit saying, just wait, and I want to show you something. And there's been times when it's like, I really want to take this training. And then the Lord showed me like all of the stuff that this person was involved in. And I was like, I can't get this person to influence me in any way because they're being so influenced by, like
right,
that the Indian gods, gods of India of all, she had all of them and
right.
stuff like that. And it's like, I can't do this. And so, um, that's, I'd been looking and looking, and I just didn't feel like I had that hesitation for everything, until I came across the Alef Tav body.
Yeah. Yeah, and the thing is, there's a lot of modalities out there that are, they're created and based on creation, but the way you use them, just like, our own physical bodies, right? We're either serving the light or we're serving the darkness. And so a lot of it has to do with who is your source,
Yeah.
and like, yeah, so it's kind of, that's the tricky part, right? Is and I see a lot of teachers and people I've known that they are absolutely amazing. They're so intelligent, they're so anointed with what they know and their giftings, but they'll be like this one huge thing, and I'm like,
Yeah.
it's not worth any of it, right? Now, sometimes you can spit out the bones, but yeah, so you
Yeah.
really do have to be careful.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. And um, I've always felt like with the all top body system, you really do need to be drawn by the Holy Spirit. And if you're not driven and surrendered to Yahweh, it won't even be attractive to you. And you may
You're
vilify
right.
it. It
Yeah.
just seems that way. Anyway, so interesting. So let's get to if you're done with that, we can move
Yeah.
on, right?
Yeah.
To how are you incorporating it into your counseling practice, and then maybe we'll go into the autism and the attachment disorders, etc.
Yeah. And so, when I was taking the training and I was realizing this is great for ADHD, this is great for autism, I was starting to like say, okay, like what can I do? Like, how can I incorporate this? And so, I have a room that I've set up that has my table on it, and I basically like what I'll do is I will see the client for like counseling one session, and the next session we'll do the Alef Top body. And
Okay.
yeah, so we're kind of like titrating between the two. And I've seen a lot of great results from that, from incorporating the Alef Top body in with my counseling practice. I've seen like like I said, I see a lot of kids who have autism, and oftentimes with autism, there's a lot of comorbidity there, especially with OCD. And I've never seen my clients work through their OCD tendencies so quickly. Um, and it's not, I'm doing muscle testing for each time the client is in the room for Alef Tov. So it's not like I'm like focusing on like the OCD ones or the whatever it is. It's just whatever their body wants. I'm noticing a trend around that, um, but I have, it's so cool to see like a client take what they're learning, the skills that they're learning in my counseling practice, and put it into practice, and seeing results happen so quickly.
So let's back up a second. What is OCD? Because
Oh, obsession compulsion disorder. I'm sorry about
okay,
that.
yeah,
Sometimes I just
I
say
know.
that.
I mean,
Yeah.
some people just don't know.
Yeah.
And what would that be like? Someone who like cleans all the time, or just is extra picky about things, or
Yeah, or you even go into the spiritual, like I can't do this because then God will strike me dead, type of stuff,
oh wow, okay,
Yeah, so they'll like there will be like a certain set of rules that they have to follow in order for the bad things to not happen, and then they could be good. So like I have to like wash my hands all the time in order for like my family to stay healthy. Because if I don't wash my hand this one time, then my family's gonna get sick and it'll be my fault. So things like that is really what's going on with OCD, and that you can the obsession compulsion, and you can see how that would really go along well with autism, because the autistic brain likes to like
right,
set rules and have like I have to follow this certain set of rules, and this is the way this is, and
yeah,
and so and then also the autistic brain likes to perseverate on things, and so does OCD, and so that's why they're very comorbid.
okay. And when you say comorbid, so when you say morbid, I think of death.
Yeah. Comorbid is like they dual diagnosis.
Okay,
Oftentimes they go together, like
okay,
autism and ADHD, autism and OCD. So depression and anxiety, those usually, if
gotcha.
you have one, you usually have the other.
Okay, all right. So you've been using this, and so you do the Christian counseling, the emotional, spiritual counseling. Of course, within ATB, you're doing all of those with touch, but that's kind of hard to explain. But maybe you can do that. So you go from there, you go to the ATB touch, which you'll know what specific area or cycle or body point you're wanting to deal with.
Yeah, yeah. I always do the muscle testing first just to see what their body wants. And what I'm finding with my clients with autism is they like hang out in cycle one, and they also like point 23. And so it can be cycle one for like the LFMs, or the pathways, messenger pathways, or whatever that is, like,
Mhm.
the governing pathways. So it could be cycle one for that, or it could be just like point 23 comes up a lot.
Okay. So for those of who I have talked about this and always will bring it back again, but in the um, in the book, or there is a chart, there's a cycle chart, right, where the
Hmm.
LFMs or the body points are on the body. And so cycle one has 4 body points,
Hmm.
and it has LFM or body point 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Hmm.
So and cycle one overall, when we come with emotions, it has to do with anxiety, right? So that's
Yeah.
something that they're dealing with. There's so much more to that, but just so for people, because some people will listening to this will know, oh, okay, I let me go look at that. And other people go like, what are
What
they?
is she talking about? Yeah.
They won't have a clue. And LFM 23, interestingly, because I blend the frequency to match those in essential oils as part of the therapy. And so, one of the things that even Dr. Monzo didn't realize, and I didn't realize until I went through and did all the blends within a week, right, instead of just one at a time, I came back to Dr. Monzo and said, hey, did you know that LFM3 frequency body point oil is the same as cycle 4? Because cycle 4 only has 1 point,
It
right?
only has one point. Yeah.
It only
Hmm.
has, so in that case, it makes sense. But in every other case, the cycle is actually a different frequency than the individual points. Um,
Yeah.
and so then you're dealing with fear, right? Is one of the things in LFM. And the key
Yeah.
is, and then back to what you're saying about, I think it's always been common for me and a lot of people, is when you're in water, around water, it's like just the Holy Spirit is more, you're more intuitive, and it feels like he may or may not speak to you more. I mean, but it's right there in Genesis.
Yeah.
And so when you're dealing with cycle 4, right, you're dealing with um, the fluids, basically the water
Yeah.
birthing, right? And so any other correlations that you are doing, it's going to be exciting to see what you come out with this. And would that be a good segue into what you were telling me about the ESA? What
Yeah.
is
So,
ESA, and how
yeah.
were you working
Uh-huh.
on with that?
Yeah. So ESA in Arizona is Empowerment Scholarship Account. And so kids who have autism can sign up for this, and it'll help pay for certain therapies. So it helps pay for like my counseling therapy to help them with any type of academic achievements. And so when I submitted for the Alef Tav body, they rejected it because there is no proof the Alef Tav body helps with academic achievements in autism. And so I was like, well, I guess I'm going to have to prove this.
Right. And that's basically because it's new, right?
Right.
The book's only been out since 21. So
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. And so I've been keeping track of my clients who are going through the Alef Tav body um, for attention span, emotional regulation, social engagement. These are just for the clients with autism. Social engagement, tolerance for sensory stressors, academic achievement overall, and memory recall. And so what I'm finding across the board is that there is a slow uptick in healthier function in all of these areas. When we first started, the scores for each one were around like 2s to 4s, very, very low, with 10s being the best overall. And now, so I started this in like August of last year.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so after all of these months, then I'm noticing that we're all the way up. We're like the base is like 4s instead of 2s and going up from there. So we are seeing some achievements there within these different domains.
Now, is that normally, are they coming and seeing you once a month, and or are you working with the parents to also do that therapy at
Yeah,
home?
so usually I'll see the client um, in my office for counseling, and then the next week I'll see them for Alef Tav, and then the next week for counseling. So we go back and forth. So they're
Oh, okay.
getting twice a month for Alef Tav body touch and twice a month for the counseling skills.
Okay. And are some of the parents interested in learning that, or
Yeah,
teaching the kid to
I
work with it
do.
with their fingers or something with the cycles?
Yeah, I do teach the parents holds
Oh,
for
cool.
the different touches, and then
Hmm.
also I have a client who is older. He's 20 now, and so
Hmm.
I teach him the self touch as well, so he can continue that on his own.
Okay. And so, uh, would you like to explain a little bit about how does self-touch work as far as frequency, energy, positive, negative, electricity, kind of like there's really a science to it. You have a way to explain that without being Dr. Monzo, right?
Yeah, let's talk to Dr. Mazzo about that. So, but I do know, like, when you're doing the Alef Top Body Touch, you usually have like a long version and a medium version, and those are different points in the body that like I can reach. And but for the self touch, those are usually the short versions and they're easier to reach, for that. And so, like what I've noticed is that when I first start working with a client with Alef Top Body, these points feel very like congested, or like the
Mhm.
energy flow feels very, very faint. And the more that I'm doing the Alef Tav on them, the stronger the energy flow and the quicker I can get the energy to flow through the body. And so I think it has to do with that, you know. So if you're doing the self touch on your own, you're helping to continue to move that which we started in the office. You're continuing to allow that energy to completely flow
Yeah.
freely.
And that is something you can feel,
Yeah.
you know, and it's not a blood pulse, which a lot of people think it is. I know sometimes, and I tell people this all the time. Sometimes when you start to use the hands-on, which really is in restoring a sense or a lost art of laying on of hands, is you might not feel any for a long time. I don't know about you, but I've felt something like, do they have any
I
energy
know.
flowing? You know,
I'm like, oh my gosh, what's the matter with this person? They don't
and
have any energy going through their
but
body.
if you wait, 5 to 15 minutes, finally, it'll start doing that. And then all the other modalities that we can add to that actually make that come along faster.
Yeah.
So when do you, like, you have these other therapies, um, I'd like for you to talk about them, but like one of them would be like the sound therapy and the chroma whole tones. Do you
Mm-hmm.
use those at the same time that
I
you're
do
doing
for
to
that
the
one.
touch?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I do the chroma whole tones frequency. So they have the headphones on and they're listening to the frequency music. And
Mhm.
at the same time, there is like a DVD player that's doing the light and color that goes along with it. And I changed the colors in my office to kind of match that as well. And so they're listening to the frequency music and they're getting the Alef Tav body. So it works really well together for that. So I do that in
Yeah.
combination.
So for those of you who don't know, so every cycle, and actually the whole tones have the number of hertz, right?
Yes.
Frequencies to line up with each of the body cycles. Um, and so these are just different modalities of using sound. So, and basically in scripture in Genesis 1:1 through 3, it's sound, light, and electromagnetism is what we're using to bring that energy into order. That's what Yahweh used to make order out of chaos. And that's exactly what the enemy uses against us. So you're by doing all of that and integrating it, you're addressing the physical, the spiritual, and the
Mm-hmm.
emotional, right?
Yep.
And yeah, so that's awesome. And how did they seem to respond to that? I mean, like, did they kind of like it, or did they just think it's weird, or they get used to it? Like,
I find they're calmer when they're doing that. And,
yeah,
kids who have autism don't like to be touched.
right,
And so
yeah.
I do find that this is a little bit of a challenge for me sometimes. But when they're listening to the frequency music, they're calmer and they can handle the touch a
Mhm.
lot better.
Yeah, I also found there's a lot. Well, at least the one I had, it was very sensitive to sound. Also,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
um, yeah. So the reason I know that is, and I never knew he was on the spectrum. I had one son who, if he heard your teeth touch a fork across
Uh-huh.
the room, he would come undone.
Uh-huh.
And I just thought, wow, he's extra sensitive. But there was this time where he had to go into the dentist, and it was very difficult to get his teeth out. And they had already given him a shot, almost a double shot, and they wanted to quit. And I knew how hard it was to get this child in the spectrum
Mm-hmm.
on there. And I'm like, no way, you can't give up now. I will stay here. And I continue to hold it. But I looked at them and I said to them, play um, the chanting music. What do
Uh-huh.
you call that? The music that they did in the monasteries.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, if you play that, I think it'll work. And they're all looking at me like, you're absolutely crazy. And sure enough, man, they turned on that music, they got it off of YouTube and played on the speaker. And it was like a drug. It just
Yeah.
totally relaxed him. And that and Celtic music for some reason. So
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
what those frequencies are. It would be interesting, but I know that in the old buildings, I think there's research out there that you can tell what they did and didn't do and took out of those buildings,
Yeah, for
especially
sure.
the walls.
And that's something like when you come into my practice, from the moment you walk into my waiting room, I have it geared for the regulation of the nervous system. And
Okay.
so, you're listening to the frequency music in my waiting room. You have all these different things, these different activities that you could do for calming. You walk in, I have a kitchenette and it's full of snacks and drinks, coffee and tea, hot, cold, chewy, crunchy, all of those things. And it's
Mhm.
because it helps to and things to suck on, like it helps to
Mhm.
regulate the nervous system. So everything that I have from the moment you walk through my door, it's all geared for nervous system regulation.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I think, a lot of people don't realize what they do and don't do or expose themselves to that make them dysregulated. Like, it's like, oh, you didn't give me a pill or even a chiropractic adjustment or something like that. So it's like Dr. Monzo will teach us that, like using magnets or um, chiropractic is actually forcing energy, right? That doesn't mean we don't ever need it, but when we're working with energy, it's just it affects us and we don't realize it. And then we're doing things that are like, is there certain things like, do you tell your people they should turn off television or their phone at a certain time
Oh
because
yeah.
it'll help dysregulate them so they can sleep,
Mm-hmm.
etc.? You do things
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I go through a whole entire sleep hygiene program and And that's the first thing. Like an hour before bedtime, there is no more screens because that blue light is a signal to your brain that like it's time to stay awake, you know? And so
Right.
we need to move from our circadian rhythms that are fast in our head to those slow heartbeat rhythms all the way into the super, super slow gut rhythms in order for us to fall asleep. And so we need to do certain things in each one of those stages in order to help get our bodies into a state of sleep.
That's
So,
awesome.
yeah.
So you're going to be keeping track of this information for the ESA program, which is the clinical recording, et cetera, for the students. How long do you think that will, do you think there's a certain number or period of time that you need to do that?
Yeah, I probably am going to do it for about a year and a half or 2 years just to keep
Okay.
track of all of that and then put all of my information together so that I can have a more of a comprehensive study to show um, to the board there.
So before we go on, tell us, where are you located?
I'm located in Chandler, Arizona, just outside of Phoenix.
Just outside of Phoenix. And we will post it. But what is your main website or way to contact you?
So my main website is www.compassionateheartcc.com. And you can get to my other websites through that, or you can go to my other websites address as well. So they're all connected.
All right, awesome. Now, in what you do you do remote work or is it all hands on?
I do some, but because I work with children,
Right.
it's better to come and see me. So what I offer actually is an intensive where people do fly in from all over the world to see me, and so they'll stay for like a week, and then I'll work with them with doing, and it's good actually. Now that I have like spiritual coaching and the integrated wellness, I'll do like the counseling work. I have my spiritual coaches do like the targeted specific prayers, and then we'll end with Alef Tav body.
Yeah, and I think that's important too, for you to explain. It does include prayer, right? There's
Hmm.
a whole acknowledgement of who the Creator is, including prayer. It's not just, it's not left out, right? That's the
Right.
center of everything is biblical lifestyle, prayer, etc. We're not just adding energy and pulling it from somewhere
Yeah.
to someone, right? Yeah. Um, so you're there in Chandler, and would you like to explain some of the other uh, services that you have there?
Um, so which one should we talk about first? Would you like to go
Whichever
into like,
one you want to, if you, however you want to do that.
so yeah, okay. So within my counseling practice,
Mhm.
I specifically for trauma work, I do instinctual trauma response. And actually, I'd worked for the instinctual trauma response, and I helped um, create the curriculum that takes it from adults to child and adolescent developmental level. And so whenever you're taking any type of child and adolescent training through the ITR, you're doing it through the stuff that I and another girl, Chelsea Morrow, helped to create. And so that's really where I get a lot of my clients who are coming from all over. And so the instinctual trauma response is we go through a trauma and we go through it in a very instinctual way. We start in the startle response with the cortisol release, and then we go into that thwarted fight and flight where we want to run away or fight our way out of it, but we can't. We're stuck in the trauma. Um, with the endorphin response, and then we have that dopamine hit which
Mhm.
shuts us down and goes makes us go into that freeze response. But because we've gone through all of these big large chemical influxes, we go into what's called an altered state of consciousness where we feel disconnected from ourselves in some way. Maybe we feel really, really big or very small, or we lose
Mhm.
track of time. Time seems to speed up or stop, or whatever that would be. Once I had a little boy describe it, I felt like my hands were on my feet were on my hands. I'm like, yep, that sounds about right, you know. So,
Wow.
and And then we go after that, we go into what I call automatic obedience. And that's the like getting ourselves out of the trauma. So it's that doing without thinking. So we're like doing that animal submission or that fawning to whoever's in charge to make sure that we survive this. Or if
Mhm.
there's nobody in charge, we're just like going into like that autopilot response. Once we're out of the trauma, we go into what's called a self repair. We're doing something to make ourselves feel better. And during this time, especially for little ones, He has such a beautiful way to help kids through that. And He gives us amnesia for the events.
Oh, yes.
Um,
Mhm. To
and
protect themselves so
yeah,
they're ready. Yeah.
yeah. But in self repair, we're often doing things like eating or drinking or sleeping or having sex or whatever that is, what we're doing in order to make ourselves feel better. And so those are like very dysfunctional ways of like helping ourselves, but it's just what we have to do to like get us out of
So
it.
sometimes you would be working with people who have a very known trauma
Hmm.
versus how many do you think, they don't even realize they have a trauma?
Yeah, I work with a lot of in utero and preverbal traumas. So
And so
I'm
how does a person come to recognize that that's what they need?
So everything that we've ever gone through in our life from
Mhm.
conception is stored in our bodies. And this
Yeah.
is the one of the reasons why the Lord wanted me to do the body work, because we do have the traumas that's stored in our bodies. And so when we are doing the trauma work for instinctual trauma response, we slow down the process and we draw out the picture for each one of these responses. And because our body knows, our body remembers what our brain forgets, our
Mm.
bodies can actually start to draw those things out. And so oftentimes we will start to see things coming out in the drawings that make a lot of sense, even though the client doesn't remember it. And
Mm.
so after we do that, we help tell the narrative in the past tense so that we can pull the trauma out of that limbic loop because it's stuck in those low sections of our brain. All the stuff comes in through our sensory input, through our nervous system, and then into the thalamus, which the thalamus, a part of the brain, like sends everything out to the different areas of the brain, sends the information to the amygdala, part of our brain, which is like the alarm center, emotional center of our brain, that's saying like, this is a dangerous situation. And the amygdala sends it to the different areas of memory, the hippocampus and the hypothalamus, which looks through the memory and says, yeah, this definitely reminds us of the time, like we were in a trauma. So this is a dangerous situation, which sends it back to the amygdala. This is very, very low in our brain. It's in the low part of our midbrain, our emotional brain, and in um, the part of our brain that is just reactive and is body, like that handles like the heartbeat and the breathing and so that's why when we go through a trigger, we feel it in our body, like we have that body response. And this part of our brain doesn't even understand time. So that's why it
Right.
doesn't understand that it happened such a long time ago and we're no longer in it. And so, because that prefrontal cortex, that's our thinking part of our brain, who can say, "Yeah, that happened when we were 5. We're now 50. We're not in a dangerous state anymore." And so, with them being able to see that story, their narrative, and hear the narrative that happened when I was 5 and now that was then and this is now, it helps pull that out of the limbic loop. And so they can get unstuck from that trauma. And then we work with parts. And so we have our authentic self, our true self, who God created us to be, those positive qualities that nobody can ever take away from us.
Mhm.
But in order for our true self to be protected, we have protector parts that come up. Those are the hurt, vulnerable parts that handle the trauma, that have negative beliefs about ourselves, like I'm not worthy, I'm not lovable, I'm not safe, I should have done something, whatever that is. And so then we work with our parts, having our true self help heal those hurt and vulnerable parts and those negative beliefs that we have about self. So that's one of the ways that I help with the trauma. And so seeing when we're drawing out the story, I'll see the body respond. I'll watch this happening. And so I work with like body work, with moving the trauma out of the body, and then bringing the person to the Alef touch room, and then helping, touching those points that it's stored there too, helps move that trauma out.
Mm. And where does What is ADHD? Is that just a throw off of autism or separate? How does that
So
come together?
Uh, So how an instinctual trauma response looks at diagnosis is it's a
Mhm.
trauma response because we're stuck in a fixed state. So like if we're stuck in a fixed state of startle, if you're always being startled, that would look a lot like ADHD, or it would look like a lot like anxiety or panic disorders or insomnia. You know, always not always being on the hyper alert and always like
Mhm.
aware. If we're stuck in a fixed state of thwarted fight and flight, that looks a lot like oppositional defiance disorder, conduct disorder, personality disorders, right? We're always trying to fight our way out of things. Um, or even bipolar, fighting, flight, running away, fighting,
Okay.
running away, you know?
Between the two, yeah.
If we're stuck in a state of freeze, that looks a lot like depression. Um, and if we're stuck in a state of altered state of consciousness, that could look a lot like schizophrenia or dissociative identity disorder. So these type of disorders that are like really like serious mental illness disorders, it's a trauma response being stuck in that state. If we're stuck in a state of automatic obedience, that looks a lot like codependency or Stockholm syndrome, you know, those type of and some personality disorders there as well. And if we're stuck in a state of self-repair, that looks a lot like addictions. You know, we're like
Mhm.
doing something to make ourselves feel better. Um, and it can even be like eating disorders.
Right.
And we can even get stuck in like all of these have body sensations, so we can get stuck in the body sensation, and it will look a lot like fibromyalgia, chronic disease, autoimmune
Right.
disease, and
Fatigue.
things like that. And so when what I've noticed is when I help clients move through their trauma and bring them out of their trauma, a lot of these tendencies seem to go away. Like for instance, I was working with a client who has autism and ADHD, and we only did one trauma. And the mom said to me, I don't know what you're doing. She said, but he now is able to like get up with his alarm and get his lunch and backpack ready and go to school, which was something he wasn't able to do with the ADHD. He couldn't keep himself focused enough to get those things done. And so that helped a lot. Just the trauma work helped with that. Does it mean that it's completely trauma? Not necessarily. I mean, ADHD, attention hyperactive disorder, could definitely be a chemical imbalance within the brain.
Mhm. Or even
Um,
heavy metals, right?
yeah, something along those lines. And so we work through the trauma and then we see what's left over and see, okay, like, oh, so
Okay.
here's some of the stuff that we're still dealing with, we're still working with. So let's see. And so, yeah, I'm excited to like continue the work with Alef Tav body to see how well it helps with
Awesome.
moving that out of the body as well.
Okay. And so other modalities that you, um,
Another modality that I work with within the counseling is a safe and sound protocol, which works on your nervous system. And it is filtered music for it's 5 hours. And so our nervous system, our polyvagal nerve is the longest nerve in our body. And when we're in a state of ventral calm, where we want to be social engaged and we can handle things, but something happens and our nervous system gets dysregulated, we go into that sympathetic fight flight response. And if it keeps on going, we go into that collapsed dorsal shutdown dissociative response. And so, what the Safe and Sound protocol does is, as you're listening to the 5 hours of filtered music, you are training your ear to listen for sounds of safety within your environments, because our ears are so geared to listen for those sounds of danger to keep us safe,
mm,
because it's our mind's job to keep us alive. And so it's hyper focusing on those sounds of danger, which are those high pitched frequencies of the predator and those low pitched growls of the predator, and those mid tones, which are those safety tones, the tones of the voice, especially the mother's voice, like that soft
right,
calming voice, those are getting filtered out. And so oftentimes, like if you're wondering why your child isn't listening to you, you've been trying to talk to them, it's because their ears are literally listening for other things, not your voice.
right.
It can't hear it. And so this protocol helps to bring the person into that state of ventral calm. And so it's pretty powerful to work that together. I work that together with the Alef Tav. Right now, as a matter of fact, I'm doing this like a titrating between Safe and Sound Protocol and Alef Tav Body with one of my clients with autism as well. So with that, we do that. And then in my Compassionate Integrated Wellness, I also have the Biomat. So when
And
I
what is that?
was,
What does that
yeah,
do?
so that's amazing. Like when I went to take the training up in the
Uh-huh.
clinic up in Ohio, I was able to experience some of these things that you guys offer up there. And so the biomat was something that I actually fell in love with. I'm like, this thing is amazing. Like, I want this every single day of my life. And so I do this for myself every single day. Between clients, I'll just go and lay on the biomat. And so what it is it's near infrared technology, and it goes through a layer of like crushed amethyst, and so it's bringing those frequencies into the body, and the heat goes deeper into your system, and it helps also with that nervous system regulation, and to help with pain and inflammation. And so I find it to be amazing. And I have a lot of clients who want to do therapy, like they want to see me, but they want to like sit on the biomat while we're talking.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah, because
yeah,
it's really simple. I mean, you just sit on it, right? And then
yeah,
you basically tune it into whatever the person may need as far as frequencies go.
right,
Warm,
right.
right? I mean, yeah, I've done it a couple of times. Yeah, yeah, cool. So you do the which, by the way, just to let those know. So there is a Olive Top body class introduction training in Ohio starting May 10th. So if you're interested in that, go to drmonzo.com and look up courses. So anyway, there may be one later in the summer, but that's the one that we're booking right now. So you got the biomat, and then you do some other light therapy. We have about 5 minutes.
Yeah, or the light therapy is with the chroma that we discussed before, with the listening of the frequency music, and then they have that goes along with it. It's light and colors that you watch for
Okay.
that. So yeah, and then I do the Vibe, a personal PEMF device,
Mhm.
and I've been seeing a lot of benefits for my clients with like ADHD. You have to like put the Vibe on, and you have to like do the whole entire program. So some of the programs, like the PTSD, is almost 3 hours. And so I don't really have a
Yeah.
client that who is going to be willing to wait around the office for 3 hours to do it. But the ADHD program is an hour and 18 minutes. Depression, insomnia, and anxiety. Those are different programs that I have the client just wearing the PMF device while we're just doing the work together. And so I'm noticing like the parents are talking about with the ADHD that they don't need as much medication. And then for depression, I'm noticing that even in the midst of the session, like their mood is lifting. So,
Awesome. Um, so you basically do the counseling. You got all the trauma and
mhm.
autistic stuff wrapped into that. And then you go into the ATV, which addresses pretty much anything and everything. You just have to decide what it is in particular. And you, as the practitioner, know what that is, right? I mean, every practitioner tunes that
Mhm.
in, whether it's with a bioscan or muscle testing or whatever.
Right.
Um, and then you have the red light. Did we talk about red light?
Yeah, I haven't gotten my red light therapy up and running yet, so
Okay.
that's something that personally I don't have it at my office yet, so we
Yeah.
partner with Kim's office to do some of that.
Right. Is it spa? What spa? Solar spa or spa?
Well, so the
Or is it a particular type?
I know one thing she does is the Cure Wave
Yes, that's amazing.
cold laser technology, which is
Yeah.
amazing. I love it so much. And so she'll come to my office with that product and work with my clients and her clients that are coming from a longer ways. So we partner together for that. So
Right, and that like gives you. She uses a laser with gives intense heat. To goes much deeper than infrared.
hmm
Right, red light, and we got to experience that here a week ago when she was here. She brought it with her, and
yeah, yeah. I had been
family.
dealing with bursitis in my left hip
Yeah.
for 30 years.
And
And
so
the
how many
very
sessions have you had before you saw
yeah,
results?
well, the very first session,
Yeah.
after
Yeah.
I was done, went to go put my pants on. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I can lift my leg." I couldn't do that before. The next that night, I still had pain while I was sleeping, and the next night, after the next session, I was able to sleep without pain. And by the third session, I was able to walk up and downstairs without the
Yeah.
use of holding onto the handrails like I had been doing for the last 30 years. And so, yeah, and it's been since then, it's been amazing. Like,
So if somebody
no
wants
pain.
to schedule that with you in Chandler, do they contact you and
Uh,
you set a time for
Yeah,
that?
they can contact me and then we'll contact Kim and
Okay.
we'll organize that together. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we leave? And again, give us your information because we need to start wrapping things up here.
Yeah. So, if they want to contact me for any of these type of modalities that we're working with, or even for the spiritual coaching, because we do the targeted spirit prayers to help with that, you can find me at my website, www.compassionateheartcc.com. You can email me at pamelabenia@compassionateheartcc.com, or call my business number at 480-420-7514.
Give me that phone
And
number again.
yeah, it's 480-420-7514.
All right, that's awesome. Well, yeah, that, so you do adults too, correct?
Yeah, I do adults on an individual basis, but my team
Mhm.
also, I have three other
Okay.
therapists who work with me, and we work with all ages.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Pam, for being here.
I appreciate
Blessings,
you having
and
me. Thank
maybe
you.
we can have you come back, especially when you get some of that more clinical research
Yeah, that would be
information
great.
done, and share with us the progress of what you're doing.
Yeah,
So
I would love that.
thank you so very much.
Thank you so
All right.
much.
So we're going to sign off, and we will see you again hopefully next week. And thank you.
If you missed today's show or want to watch it again or want to tell someone where they can watch this episode, go to lambnetwork.tv, where you will find this show and all other live Lamb Show archives in the on-demand section of the website. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to tell somebody about the Messianic Lamb Network.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.